Good morning. Today we are doing 4A, which is on building equations. This is basically just doing a problem backwards, okay? So if we were given solutions that say solutions are -5 and -2. So that means x is -5, and x is -2. So we can move this over and say, okay, x plus 5 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. Now using that zero factor property backwards, we can go, okay, that's x plus 5 times x plus 2 equals 0. Now distribute, so I'm going to FOIL this out, and I'll get an x squared plus 2x plus 5x plus 10 equals 0. And then combine like terms, I'll get an x squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0. Now since I'm being asked to build up this equation and figure out what that equation is, you do need an equal sign over here and make it equal to 0. Okay, and this is just one of many equations that could fit the bill here. See, what we have going on is something like this. What was it? -2 right here, 3, 4, 5, and right here. So you could have something that's going like this. You could have something that's going like this. You could even have something going like this. We don't know until we know what our vertex is. So this is just one in a family of equations that will go through those 2 points, okay? So let's take a look at this next one. So we have x equals plus or minus 1. So that's going to be x equals 1, x equals -1. Then we have an x equals 3. So we have 3 x's here. We know it's going to be a cube, right? So let's move it over. X minus 1 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. Now let's use that zero factor property backwards and say, okay, that's x minus 1 times x plus 1 times x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, I would do these two first when I multiply them out or distribute, okay, because they're the same thing, opposite signs. I know I don't have a middle term. That's going to give me x squared minus 1. Then I still have this over here, x minus 3 equals 0. Need to distribute again, so that's going to give me an x cubed minus 3x squared minus x plus 3 equals 0. And there you go. Okay, so this one's a little different. We have this 1/3 here, fraction. One of the rules for doing these, building up these equations, is you don't want a fraction in your equation, okay? So I need to get rid of that fraction. So pay close attention how I do this. So I have x equaling 1/3, x equals 5. Okay, so I want to get rid of that 3 there because it's going to be breaking a rule. So what I'm going to do is just multiply both sides by a 3. That now gives me a 3x equals, those guys are going to cancel out and leave me a 1. Then move the 1 over, so I'll have a 3x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so I got rid of my fraction by multiplying through by 3 on that, whatever your denominator is. Then over here, we still have the x equals 5. Oh, I should have changed that here. X minus 5 equals 0. So let's go. Oh, made a mess out of that. Here we go. X minus 5 equals 0. Okay, zero factor property backwards. So 3x minus 1, x minus 5 equals 0. Now distribute. So 3x squared minus 15x minus x plus 5 equals 0. Put together like terms. So 3x squared, those guys are like terms, minus 16x plus 5 equals 0. Okay? So we are not allowed to have a fraction down in the equation. You have to clean it up. Get rid of that by multiplying through by 3 on that one. Okay, this next one looks a little scary, but it's not too bad. I'm actually going to do this 2 different ways. Okay, I'll do it the long way, then I'll show you a shortcut way for doing it. Okay, so this really means x equals a positive square root of 7 and x equals a negative square root of 7. Move it to the other side. So x minus square root of 7 equals 0. And this will be x plus square root of 7 equals 0. Okay, use the use the 0 property backwards. So x minus square root of 7 times x plus the square root of 7 equals 0. Now look at, they're the exact same thing but opposite signs, so we know the middle term's going to go away, so I don't even have to try to find that. X times x is going to give me x squared. Then I have a negative times a positive, so that's going to give me a negative. Square root of 7 times square root of 7 is going to give me a 7 equals 0. And that's it. Okay? So here's a little trick I learned along the way. I'll show you here. So let's start with the exact same problem. X equals plus or minus square root of 7. Okay? Now, what I want to do is have the plus or minus whatever is right behind it on one side of the equal sign all by itself. Everything else over here. Then we're going to square both sides. Okay? Square this and square this. So that's going to give me an x squared equals. Well, if I square a positive, that's a positive times a positive, that's going to give me a positive. If I square a negative, that's a negative times a negative, so that's going to give me a positive. So whatever goes down here is positive. Then I square this square root of 7, and I will get a 7. Okay, we're trying to set it to 0, so move this to the other side, and you'll get x squared minus 7 equals 0. Got the same thing. All right, next one here. And again, I'll do this one both ways. Okay, so we have, this is going to be x equals 1 plus I, and x equals 1 minus I. Okay, move everything to the other side. So x minus 1 minus I equals 0. X minus 1 plus I equals 0. Now put them together. X minus 1 minus I times x minus 1 plus I equals 0. Okay, now we have to distribute. Let's start with the x. X times x gives me an x squared. X times that negative 1 gives me a negative x. X times the I gives me a positive xi. Okay, let's go to the negative 1 now. Negative 1 times x gives me a negative x. Negative 1 times negative 1 gives me a positive 1. Negative 1 times the I gives me a negative I. Okay, let's move on to the negative I here. Negative I times x gives me a negative xi. Negative I times the negative 1 gives me a positive I. And the negative I times the negative I gives me a negative, negative I times a positive I gives me a negative I squared. Okay. Oops, I put that one up there. It should have been down there. No big deal. Okay, let's take a look at this. Got an x squared minus a 2x. Those are opposites. Well, these guys are opposites. And I squared, remember I squared is -1. So if I had a 1 in front, that's going to change the sign. So a +1. 1 plus 1, so that'll give me +2 equaling 0. So there we go. Okay, let's take a look at doing that with the shortcut way. So x equals 1 plus or minus I. Now remember, we're trying to get whatever plus or minus and what is it right behind it on one side, move everything else to the other side. So this will be x minus 1 equals plus or minus I. Then we're going to square both sides. And remember, that really equals x minus 1 times x minus 1, right? So when I FOIL that out, I'm going to get an x squared minus x plus 1 equaling, okay, over here, I square a positive, I get a positive. Square a negative, I get a positive. Square an I get I squared. Okay, let's do the work here, clean it up. X squared minus 2x plus 1 equals, okay, I squared, remember, is -1. Move that to the other side, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. I get x squared minus x plus 2 equals 0. And I got the same thing. All right. Let's try another one here. Okay, so do it both ways. This will be x equals -1 plus square root of 6. X equals -1 minus square root of 6. Move those to the other side. X plus 1 minus square root of 6. And this one will be x plus 1 plus square root of 6. Oh, I forgot the equal 0. All right. Put those together. X plus 1 minus square root of 6 times x plus 1 plus square root of 6 equals 0. Okay, let's go through with the x's. X squared plus x plus 6. Oops, I don't like that. I want to put the x first. Okay, so I'll get rid of that. Plus x square root of 6. Okay, let's do the 1. So that's going to give me an x plus 1. Plus 1. I'm still on that 1 and the square root of 6 plus square root of 6. Let's do the negative square root of 6. So that's going to give me a negative x square root of 6. This is going to give me a negative square root of 6. And this one will give me a negative 6. I'll line that up with the 1 here, negative 6. Okay. All right, let's go through here. Got an x squared plus 2x. These guys are opposites, so they're gone. Those are opposites, and this will be a -5, and you have your equals 0. Okay, so not too bad. Let's try this using the other method. Okay, so we're going to start with the exact same thing. Move the 1 to the other side because we want the plus or minus whatever on one side all by itself. So I get x plus 1 squared equals plus or minus square root of 6. Okay, so remember that this one means this, okay? And when you FOIL it out, you're going to get x squared plus 2x plus 1 equaling, square it, it's positive, square it, positive, square it, 6. Move this to the other side, so subtract 6 on both sides. X squared plus 2x minus 5 equals 0. Okay, so we got the same thing. All right, the next thing we're going to do is multiplicity, and that is the number of times the solution to the polynomial equation appears as a 0. Okay, so if I were to start with something like this, the x equals -2, which I'd get off of this right here, appears twice, okay, because that's there twice. That really means x plus 2 times x plus 2. And remember, if it appears twice like that, and it's a double, it bounces off the x-axis right there. Okay, and so it has a multiplicity of 2. All right. And this 1, which I get off of this one, has a multiplicity of 1. It only shows up once. Okay, so if this is negative 2, 1, 2, right here, and this one is a 1 right here, what is happening here is it comes up here, it's going to bounce off right there, and then go up like that. Okay? So let's find the equation that has a solution of x equals 5, a multiplicity of 1. Okay, so that's going to be there once. X equals, doesn't look like an x, does it? Okay, x equals 5. Okay, and down here, x equals negative 3. And it's going to be there twice because it has a multiplicity of 2. So x equals negative 3, like that. Okay, so this will be x minus 5 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, let's put it together now. So x minus 5, x plus 3, and x plus 3. All right, so let's just distribute. I'll do these two together. So x squared, and then that'll give me a plus 3x minus 5x minus 15. Let's clean that up a little bit. So x squared minus 2x minus 15. Okay, then we still have this x plus 3 over here equaling 0. All right, we have to do the work for that. So I'm actually going to go this way. That'll give me an x cubed minus 2x squared minus 15x. That's the x part. Now let's do the 3. So the 3x squared minus 6x minus 45. Put those together. X cubed plus x squared minus 21x minus 45 and equaling 0. Okay, so what is going on here is x equals 5. Let's just say that's 5 right there. And x equals negative 3. So let's say that's like right there. What's happening here is it comes up this way. It's going to bounce off and then go over here. We don't know where this is yet. We'll figure that out in Math 111. All right, that's it for building equations. Now remember, you have to have that equals 0 because it is an equation. Okay, hope you enjoyed. Bye.